every time that you grow a business, very possible you're gonna need more people. And the working class is the one that really pay taxes. Do you agree?
100%.
So if you grow as a business owner, you're gonna create more jobs that are gonna pay more taxes. And I think that's why the US wants you to grow so you can help the country have more jobs. So we can have more people paying taxes.
But let's talk about tax for a second.
Okay.
From an investment standpoint, I want to get into the differences between, and I can describe between Canada and the US. Let's say you have a property in Canada. One way to not pay tax is if you refinance the equity, you can strip the equity of the property. That's tax-free. Okay, great. But the problem with the Canadian market is it's becoming, if not virtually impossible, very difficult and challenging to refinance and strip your equity and then expect that the income that you're going to generate from an asset is going to pay for your debt service. Mm-hmm. Because the property values are so overly inflated. You could have $1 million property and it could rent for $3,000. Mm-hmm. And that property could increase to $1.5 million. And then maybe now you're only getting $3,600. So now you have that $600 difference, but you might have an additional $500,000 in equity. Even if you refinance that, you can only go so far. Otherwise, now you're going to be upside down every month and not make money. I don't want to make this too complicated, but like
negative cash flow.
So now the bottom line is negative cash flow. That's what it comes down to, right? Whereas in the US, if that strategy doesn't work, I could turn around and sell a property, and the IRS, which is the Internal Revenue Service, they have in their tax code where if you sell a property and you exchange it, basically you're being rewarded for continuing to stimulate and invest in the market. Mm-hmm. If you turn around and sell that property and make a profit of even $1 million, as long as you go and find another property in the market that has equal or greater value, you pay no tax. Mm-hmm. You completely defer that tax. And you can keep recycling. You can sell investment after investment after investment in the US and virtually pay no tax for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. That's a completely different environment, completely different business environment to the Canadian economy, which again, very similar like culture, but then that's a pretty distinct difference right there. But that just goes to show, like, when the advantages investing in the US, if you know what you're doing, you will be handsomely rewarded.
When you were saying negative cash flow, in Mexico, that's the norm.
In Canada, that's the norm.
So in Mexico,
it's become the norm.
Yeah, but in Mexico, because the mortgage rates are so high, so right now, we can be speaking about 10 or 11 and people is like, oh, it's super low. We used to pay 14, 15, 20% yearly.
Which is insane. So like interest rates here are 11%.
Yeah, I think they're like 11% right now.
That's crazy.
For a house. Okay, so people invest in houses because we were told that real estate is the safest investment, right? So, but people is getting it and they get into a 30-year mortgage that even if they rent it, they're going to be losing money every month for 30 years, right? Because they are speculating that house in 30 years is going to cost or is going to be valued double, and they made money that way. So it's extremely painful and speculative, and man, I mean, you have to wait 30 years to say, I have a house. So it takes you forever. You never made money from your salary. You have to be putting into that house. So eventually one day you're going to have this piece of investment. So it takes forever, right? What it worries me a lot is that since Mexicans are so used to that, when they come to the US and somebody offers them an investment in a house and they see that they don't have cash flow, for them it's normal and they go and invest into that.
Man.
There's a huge, I remember when I got my master's in economics, and one thing I love and I always try to think about it is the cost of opportunity. Putting $500,000 in this house that has no cash flow versus the one that has cash flow. There's a huge cost of opportunity. But the thing is that a lot of times people invest in the house, and I think I'm gonna finish with this. The confusion they get from, I'm gonna buy this nice apartment in Miami, in a super nice area. It gets so sexy. It has no cash flow.
It's an illusion.
But I'm gonna eventually, this apartment in 20 years is gonna be $1 million, right? And then I compare it with a house in a, I don't know, in a countryside or a rural side of whatever state in the Northeast of the US. It's not sexy. It's not something that you would like to live on there, you know? But they give you cash flow every month. People prefer.
That's the real sexy, by the way.
People do not think on that.
Cash flow.
The thing is, and I always say that, what would you prefer? I made sometimes a couple of videos about that. What would you prefer? A property that you're gonna brag on the next family reunion that you have, or the one that is making you money? Because that's the problem, that we're buying the apartment in Miami so I can tell my compadre or my amigo that, hey, I got an apartment in Miami. Oh, wow. But you're not making any money. You're losing money. And the ones that, man, they don't look nice is not something to be, you know, pretentious in our family reunions. Maybe it's even better not to say anything, but you're making money every single month.
But unfortunately, and this is what happens when we talk about the mistakes that people make coming into the US, is they're sold this illusion. They're sold this illusion that, and it's funny because you know a client that I'm talking about who has a property in Miami, recently had a conversation with him, and he bought it for $2.4 million. This was prior to him getting involved with us. And now he's saying, well, this thing doesn't make sense whatsoever. Renting it would be absolutely illogical. Now what do I do? Well, okay. Now we have to try and reverse engineer what he's done, because if he took that 2.4 million and he went into an area, like you just said, where it's not necessarily sexy looking, it's not overlooking water and beaches, but if he converted that 2.4 million, and there are areas in the US where this exists, and bought multiple properties and generated $15,000 in net cash flow. That's the question that I would ask someone. Do you want the future appreciation that you may not even see? Maybe your kids will benefit from it, but I have the philosophy that I should benefit from the fruits of my labor just as much as my kids.
Yes.
Are you going to invest in something like that in which you may never see the ultimate fruit of that labor? Or would you rather invest in something in which you get multiple assets? The appreciation of that asset may not be the same, but it produces for you $15,000 in cash flow today. Cash flow today that you can turn around, and if you understand the power of compounding, take that and keep reinvesting and growing. There's something to be said about how powerful cash flow is over some speculative appreciation of an asset. And this, unless you're living this, you don't necessarily know. You can't just read this from some AI text, you know what I mean? Or some book. You have to live an experience. So, but I do have a question for you, because I'm wondering if Mexicans think the way Canadians think, and the way Americans think, which is buying your home is the right thing to do when you're starting. How do Mexicans look at that?
All the time. All the
As
time.
in, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, all the time.
That's another illusion that we have been sold. Canadians think like that. Americans think like that. It's funny this has come up because I've recently been asked this question more than I ever have been in my almost 30 years of investing. Joe, there's speakers going around, some, very few, most don't necessarily agree with this, but there are a few that are going around saying the smart thing to do is to not buy your home. So now I'm getting that question asked of me. And I'm like, I agree with that. And they're like, you do? Surprisingly, the real estate guy that's been
Yes.
investing for 30 years,
Yes.
like, why do you believe in that? I say, because I'm not telling you don't invest in real estate. Invest in real estate. Because if you know what you're doing in the US, there is tremendous wealth to be made.